Hello, and welcome to the Thinking Elixir podcast, where we cover the news of the community and learn from each other. My name is Mark Erickson.
And I'm David Bernheisel.
Let's jump into the news.
First up, Phoenix, another release candidate for Phoenix and Phoenix LiveView. We've got a Blue Sky post out to Stefan, who goes into some of it in detail. Here's a quote from one of his posts. It says, "We now have an Igniter upgrader for anyone using LiveView 1.0. The RC requires you to first update the dependency so you can get the Igniter task, and then run a mix Phoenix LiveView .upgrade from version to version, so 1.00 to 1.1. So that'll be very helpful. All those tedious little things. Very nice. Very happy about that.
I mean, having that just for the future too, just like some upgrades. I'm thinking of things like early days LiveView. There were some significant changes that might touch a lot of your templates, but they were pretty much automatable, right? They could be done like that. And so, having something like this, that's exciting.
Yeah. Also in this RC is using Ecto 3.13's new repo.transact function, right? So we had touched on that earlier, but the short version is that Ecto now has a repo.transact function that it will grant you. Well, I think the plan is to deprecate repo.transaction, but there's nothing wrong with it. In your code base, you keep it, it's fine. but what repo transact is about is it's really a kind of a pattern about a with statement inside of your function in there. So it'll just roll back when, your with statement returns, something that's not an okay, kind of shape, versus the repo transaction, which is generally something that relied on like throwing exceptions, to roll back or manually rolling back. I think that's the basic idea. And there's a good article that we'll find and put into the show notes for you to catch up on what that means. So the news item is that Phoenix generators are now going to include that as the default pattern, which is great. Another item is that we've talked about this before as well, but there's a new security guide that is now included in the Phoenix guides. So this is, best practices, things not to do in your Phoenix app as you're trying to figure things out. So the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation does have, some guides on their website about all of this as well. That will probably be the evergreen version of all this, I'm sure. But a lot of developers are just, they go to the Phoenix guides to figure out how to write Phoenix stuff. So naturally, a security guide should be in there too. And then last up, probably a very minor thing to most folks, but they're adding fetch support. This is JavaScript fetch. They're adding JavaScript fetch support to LongPoll when XML HTTP request is not available. Okay, I saw that and I was like, what? Where is that ever going to happen? Because I don't have enough experience, obviously. XML HTTP request is that's like the baseline, like how browsers do requests, right? You have to polyfill fetch for a long time. All right. Well, it turns out it's because of service workers. Okay. Service workers. That makes a lot of sense. Service workers are kind of this different, this different sandbox of JavaScript code that's not really a browser. Right. So that makes a lot of sense. So all that to say is if you're using Phoenix channels in some service worker, you should have a better time now trying to bundle that up.
Yeah. And service workers, I see those most often with things like progressive web apps, things like that. That's where you're using them. And then you're going to see them on, mobile. They're really common there. They obviously run on desktop computers too, laptops and everything. It's one of those areas where you think, oh yeah, that is JavaScript and it's not running in a browser. Not really. It can kind of be running outside of the browser's context.
Yep. So, that's great. And not in this release candidate, but it bundled into this overall release too, I think is the speaking of all the JavaScript things, Phoenix.js is going to include TypeScript annotations now as well. So the DevX, around all that's going to just get better naturally, right? Hopefully we don't get worse.
Today's episode is sponsored by Paraxial.io. Every day, hackers search the internet for vulnerable applications aiming to steal sensitive data, commit fraud, and spitefully ruin the weekend of a hardworking developer. Paraxial.io is the first and only security platform with full Elixir support that stops these attacks. Developers love the Elixir native protection, and management loves the Paraxial.io metrics that detail the security accomplishments of engineering, which are required for SOC 2, ISO, and HIPAA compliance. Sign up for a free trial of Paraxial.io today and mention Thinking Elixir when you schedule a demo for a special offer. Check it out today at Paraxial.io. All right, and next up, a couple new libraries we wanted to just highlight and mention. So one is a new library called deps_changelog. And what this does is this finds additions to top-level dependencies, changelog files upon update, and accumulates them into a new deps.changelog.md file where any task can be specified to run to perform the update. David, you were the one who found this one, so maybe you can correct anything I've got wrong here. But like what this is doing is I have my application and I have a whole bunch of deps. I can run this mix task and it can go and look at my deps and reach out and look for any change logs when it's doing an upgrade or anything like that. Is that what's going on with this?
Yeah, so think about like what Dependabot does at GitHub, right? When they open up a PR, in the PR description, with best effort, and I'm sure this is too, with best effort, it's going to parse that changelog, and it's going to find what you're currently on and what you're going to, and it's going to grab all that stuff in between in these changelogs and put it into your PR description so you can have, specific things that are changing, as you do this upgrade. And that's what this is doing, but without Dependabot.
Doing it locally and creating a markdown file that you could review and work from.
Right. I would find this very helpful if you were to like Claude code this, right? Like have a task for your AI agent to like run this thing, review the change log differences, look in our app for any of these, breaking changes or the instructional changes, and then open up the PR with that markdown in the description as well. So you can kind of basically build your own Dependabot, really, right? But a little bit smarter. There's also one other thing here that could be interesting that this talks about, which is, well, we just talked about it with Phoenix LiveView. Some of these updates might include update tasks. And so you can kind of wrap this up. This is in deps changelog in the README. So you can add an alias to like mix update, and it's going to do the deps changelog. It's going to run the deps update igniter. It'll upgrade all of the things. It'll do the deps, changelog thing afterwards. And then it's going to call out to igniter, apply upgrades. Like, fantastic, right? Like all of that in one mix update task. Like if that just works like this, suggests, that's going to be great. You don't even have to send that to an AI agent, just one, you're going to type less characters yourself, just run that yourself, But that, of course, implies that everything underneath is using Igniter and has Igniter upgrade tasks and all. So I don't figure we'll ever be in that perfect world, but it's a great start.
That's cool. And the other library is a new Elixir process debugging library called Hog that was written and released by Alex Koutmos. So Alex said he was trying to track down an out-of-memory issue that was crashing his Elixir app, and he needed some additional tooling to help pinpoint which process was getting out of control. So he created Hog to find the memory-hungry process and log some more information about them. So it's really simple. It's like a library just used to pinpoint and deal with memory-hungry processes. We took a look at the library, and it is one of those very small libraries, right? Like the amount of code that this actually does is quite focused and small. It provides a gen server, and you can add this gen server to your application, startup tree. And then you have a couple config things where you say, how frequently should it check? Just on some interval, it's going to check which processes are running. And what is the threshold of megabytes of RAM that you care about? Maybe it's 100 megabytes of RAM. That's the default in his example. So what it would do is every 1 minute or whatever interval you set, look at all the processes, look at how much RAM they're consuming, and then if they're past that threshold, log out some information about that. That's it. What I think is really cool about that is it's just highlighting how simple it is to do something like that in the Beam because there's so much observability built into the Beam itself. Just saying, what are the processes running? How much memory are they consuming? Now, then what this library does is it pulls in OTel for telemetry, either just do a regular log or telemetry events to say, here's what I found. But yeah, I just think it's a testament to the Beam as well.
Yeah, that's great. I'm curious I'm curious how that would work with like NIF things. I don't recall.
Right. If it's outside the memory space. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall how that works. And then there's the other side of it too. So say you're using Rustler or Ziggler, and I know Ziggler for sure does this. Like they do tie. I think I'm right. I might be wrong. Where the Zig side of the plugin will report back, resource usage as well. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's details there. But yeah, very amazing to see how small and simple this library is. When you see these kinds of libraries, like it's on one hand, it's like, this is great. This is so easy. On the other hand, I feel ashamed, I feel ashamed because like, how is this so easy and sitting right in front of my face this entire time, and then me not think about this,
That's great.
All right. We'll shift to a little industry news. We'll take a pause here on Elixir stuff, I guess. I do think that some Elixir folks probably use Fly.io for a lot of reasons. They do make things very simple for like deploying things and getting things out there, just like from the CLI up to the cloud, and they handle a lot for you, right? I remember when I first started on Fly.io, they offered quote unquote managed Postgres. And I'm probably misquoting them. I know I am, because they had to like fix that. They had to fix that messaging. It wasn't managed in the sense that you would be managed by, something like Crunchy Data, and then AWS, the typical solutions out there, right? And so what I actually have out there at this moment is an unmanaged Postgres that is just managing just fine on its own, being unmanaged and unpatched, I'm sure. All right, so why am I talking about Fly.io now? Well, they have announced that they now have legitimate managed Postgres. So we've got a link out to their social media post about it. Here's what it says. Managed Postgres with automatic backups, failover, and monitoring. So you can choose between basic, launch, or scale plans across 6 regions. They've got pricing on there, 24/7 support. Everything runs in your private network. That's a Fly.io thing, right? And then database management without the headaches. I will admit, I have not had headaches even without managed Postgres. I say that, and I think I did have to reboot it once, and I don't know why. I just had to reboot it.
Yeah, I just know when I was working there, managed Postgres was a big thing. Like I'd talk to people at ElixirConf or something like that, and they'd say, we need managed Postgres. And it's like one of those boxes they want to check, right? That we want this to exist for us as a customer, and it wasn't there. What Fly did have was some scripts that made it very easy to create a Postgres instance and even make it multi-instance, to high availability. There were backups that were being performed, but it maybe not at the same level as a managed one.
Yeah.
That was always one of those things where I didn't necessarily need it myself. Like I've got multiple apps running on Fly, and I didn't need the managed database myself, but people wanted it and needed it. So because of that, I knew how important it was. So I was just glad to see that, hey, it's available now.
Yeah. I assume this means that you have to have at least 2 instances running, right?
Well, they had the high availability before, which would be like 3. You said you might have a primary and failovers and read replicas, and you could even have a multi-region. Like that was already there. This is where it's actually managed. And I remember when I was there, we were talking about how this is a sticking point for people.
Yeah,
and it's a hard problem to solve, right? To actually be able to say it's managed, which is automation is all around it,
right?
That something is looking to see, like in your case, that the database now is no longer passing health checks and automatically cycle it or something like that, or things like that where it's just happening for you. It's part of the system that's built in. That part wasn't there.
Yeah. So from their screenshot, it looks like the kind of the minimum price there, it looks like might be around $38 a month, something along those lines. I'm sure you can play with the settings. It can be more. It maybe can be less. Worth checking out. I think the biggest reason why I went unmanaged was because I had like, at the time I had like 5 apps out there, and they all needed like one table for one dumb little thing. And I didn't want each of them to have their own database. I'm like, I'm not paying for that. I just need one one database to just like let all my side projects just all connect to it. I don't care if they share space. Like, that's fine. If they all go down, they all go down. That's fine.
Actually, then I've got something we'll talk about in a little bit later that you could possibly use instead of a database.
Oh,
It's coming up in just a little bit.
nifty.
All right. And next up, there's a really cool conference talk that was released to YouTube that covers a really neat Beam architecture for a system. The goal of the architecture was 100% uptime. That means no unintended outages and no intended maintenance outages, right? No loss of service for the whole system. So what this is it's a YouTube video. It's Brian Hunter. It's called Waterpark, Transforming Healthcare with Distributed Actors. It was in Oslo in 2025. There's been previous versions of this talk, I think, but this is the 5-year anniversary of this system where they have actually reached that point of we've got 5 years with 100% uptime, and it's all with Elixir. And what they do is just kind of amazing. It's the kind of thing like you're probably never going to build a system like this, but watching this video gives you ideas and you're thinking, oh, I see how this could work. Maybe there's some little nugget of information that could inspire something in my project. So this actually came from Sasha Urich. He had shared it on social media that he had finally gotten around to watching this and he was impressed by it. It's like that piqued my interest. So I sat down and watched it. It is really cool. One of the things that's interesting is that the entire system is the database. Like they're not using an external database. So there's no Postgres, there's no Cassandra or anything else. The system is the database. Everything runs in RAM. And it's for healthcare where they have one process per patient. One of the problems they're trying to solve is when you have shift changes in the hospitals, like 12-hour shifts, lots of knowledge transfer doesn't go very smoothly through those shift changes. So they will be able to run for at least 21 days and longer even for tracking a patient's care, where this process tracks everything that's going on about this patient and their interactions with the hospital, all the test results, everything that's happening. And then they talk about how it's using Bloom filters, which is this really cool way of indexing things. So he goes into some of this stuff, and he's also referencing a whole bunch of different research papers that they used as inspiration too. So anyway, you're probably never going to build a system like this, but it is really cool just to see what you can build and all the different pieces that can go into this. And it's all in the Beam, all in Elixir. So yeah, it's a great one for inspiration.
I think I saw them talk about Waterpark at Beam Light, New York City. Yeah, I guess it was last year. Anyway, also totally unrelated. Is it Oslo or Oslo? Okay,
so if you're Norwegian, it's Oslo, or Oslo. It depends on the dialect. But yeah, Oslo for a normal American, I guess. For
us Americans. Okay. Well, today I learned. Also fascinating talk, by the way. That was it was eye-opening. Like they've really leaned into the Beam there, which is great.
Yeah.
And who can't compete? Who can compete with 5 years of 100% uptime? It's not the nines with all the nines behind it. It's 100%. I'm sure there will be many tears the day that ever gets wiped away.
Well, he also talks about how they are managing that with multi-region, multi-data center to ensure hey, even if this entire city gets taken out, this is how it happens. And how they have a process that contains a specific patient information is replicated real time in multiple places. Because, it really all comes back to the Beam, where you expect things to fail, and it's more about being fault tolerant because stuff will happen. So it's not like they've never had a problem. It's that their system can handle the fault and the issues.
True. And that's true. Yeah. All right. Well, hey, moving on. An interesting and in-depth article on Curiosum. I hope I'm saying that one right. We've featured them several times before. About using Elixir and Phoenix to pull data from Google's spreadsheet and display it on the web. Is this what you were talking about?
This is it. Yes.
Okay.
What I didn't realize is that there were a couple different hex packages. They're already there in the community for interacting with Google API Sheets and Google API Drive packages that are Elixir packages.
Yeah.
So he goes through different scenarios, but one of the scenarios could be some spreadsheet is your database.
Yeah.
What you'd probably do is, I imagine, is when you'd start up the app, load data out of it into like an ETS table or something and just load it into memory because it's pretty static, and then periodically perhaps refresh it from the spreadsheet. Anyway, spreadsheets, they could be your database.
I've heard of plenty I've heard of plenty stories where some solopreneur out there launches some $1,000 a month app where they're making thousands of dollars a month, and like the tech under it's all one. Here's the joke is that it's all one PHP file and backed by Google Sheets or something. So it's real. It's a real viable thing. It's not like you're driving Chrome browsers, to Google Sheet. No, obviously this is an API. This is like a fully, scalable solution. There's nothing to be ashamed about here. In fact, it's actually quite cool because I'm sure, if you're not just working on your own, you're working with somebody else, that somebody else, could probably like, what's in the database? Well, then you got to like figure out some solution to show what's in the database. But if it's just in a Google Sheet, be like, here, pop it in over here, go ahead, edit it, and that's the real data. And so what this article goes through is just, from the start to the end of building a Phoenix application and getting the Google Sheets, set up and setting up all the modules in between to import and export and seed all that kind of stuff into your app. So if you haven't like come across this as like just as a concept, this article will give you, fill in all those holes for your concept of just knowing how to use a Google Sheets backend for holding some of that data for you, which is pretty nice.
And they go into a couple other scenarios, and probably the more realistic scenario for most of us is that you want to have that be a data source, right? I'm going to pull data from there into my system, so you still need to be able to access it. That may not be the 100% store of data, but So if you ever need to interact with Google Sheets with an Elixir app, this is probably the best, most complete article I'd seen about that topic.
Yeah. Another thing here too is inevitably somebody's going to want an export. And so you're going to have to figure out, if you just have it in Postgres, you're going to have to like, all right, now I got to go do a, Postgres to CSV or something like, But this is already a spreadsheet, and Google Sheets obviously supports, all these other formats to export to. But here's the cool thing is like the most of what you could export out of Postgres is a CSV, because there's no formatting information in those cells, right? It's raw data. You have to write that code to format it in a way. With Google Sheets, if you didn't want to do it in code, that's fine. But in the sheet itself, you could format, like these columns to be a certain, presentation, and then it would export, to a real Excel spreadsheet, which keeps all that formatting in there. So just another nice little thing. And maybe, what, Mark, maybe you're right. Maybe I should just go export my Postgres database out there. I think quite literally it's only out there because I was running Oben to rate limit Docker jobs. Like I could only have one running at a time, and that was the closest tool I reached for.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. It's not going to be it's not going to be a good Oben backend. No.
Yeah. Not a good Oben backend. But wow, that would be I'm sure Parker out there would be elated if somebody wrote an Oben backend for Google Sheets. It'd be so funny.
All right, and next up, there's a fun tip. Elixir has a compiler directive that you express in code where you can say that I want this particular function with this arity to be inlined everywhere that it's used instead of just being called as a function. So I just saw this was shared on Twitter, X, and it's like, oh yeah, I've never used this, but it's just good to be aware that this kind of tool exists. I think you'd only ever want to do this for those really performance critical bits of code that are in tight loops or something like that. And you'd probably still want to use Benchy or something to verify that it's even worth going to the trouble. But it's also a one-liner flag to say, I want this to be inlined. So it's just really cool that Elixir has this feature, and it wasn't something I was actively ever thinking about.
All right. Hey, The full Elixir US, ElixirConf US 2025 schedule has been published. It was published a couple of weeks ago, I think, actually. But they got the keynotes as well. So we got a link out to their webpage. You'll find it, elixirconf.com. So here's the full set of keynotes, and the 2 days of the conference speaker schedule is up as well, so you can go check it out. But here's the keynotes. You got Allison Randall, who's an open source and hardware strategist. Of course, you have Chris McCord, and of course, you've got José Valim. Also in the lineup is Josh Price, who is the technical director at Alembic. So we're getting some great Ash representation there, and then a good old favorite, Bruce Tate, will be there. Author, editor, founder of Grox.io. Those are the keynotes of ElixirConf 2025. You probably aren't going there only for the keynotes. You're also going there for all the other really cool talks that everyone's giving. And so you're going to find that out on elixirconf.com. You should go check it out, peruse the list, go ahead and make your list of all the talks that you want to go see. And don't forget, you can use the Thinking Elixir discount code for 10% off of that ticket price. And so we got a link out to automatically apply that discount code for you. So if you check out the show notes, click that link and save a little bit of that money.
And last up, another little conference follow-up is that the speaker list for CodeBeam Europe is up as well. So you can check that out. The conference is November 5th and 6th in Berlin, but also online. So I don't think the schedule itself is published yet. So I couldn't tell if it was, 1, 2, or 3 track or anything like that. But there's quite a few speakers, so I'm guessing it's multi-track. And it's 2 days. But you can see who the speakers are and what it is they're going to be presenting about. I really do need to get out to one of those European Elixir or Beam conferences.
Yeah.
I just need a good excuse to go to Europe. And and that would be an awesome one, All right, family, you guys go visit this other place. I'm just going to go hang out at this conference.
Actually, kids, you're going to go visit Grandma and Grandpa for a while.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us next time on Thinking Elixir.